Hey, so glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Martini Lunch. And Jim, plenty to talk about today, as always. In just a moment, we'll be talking about the ridiculous math performance from incoming college students. It's really alarming, and it says a lot about people getting shuffled through high school and middle school and elementary school, and suddenly they show up at college literally knowing almost nothing when it comes to math, at least. And I'm guessing that's probably true in some other subjects as well. We'll dig into that. The United Nations, unsurprisingly, is now joining the cause of regulating, cracking down on social media speech, internet speech, because what they call misinformation and disinformation is damaging to their agenda. But of course, we'll start in just a moment with the shutdown finally being over, longest shutdown in history. The bill that the Senate passed a couple days ago passed the House last night, 222 to 209. So we'll talk all about that and what comes next here in the next couple months. But Jim, our, I don't know about long national nightmare, but stupid Democratic stunt is finally over.
Yeah, I don't want to preview everything I'm going to say about the government shutdown, Greg, but I got to say, like, the shutdown feels really long. I would also point out that this week feels really long, and I've only been on this podcast for 2 days. I've noticed that, like, when it's Monday, you always know what day it is. You always know it's Monday. When it's Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these three are like three triplets. They're the Hanson brothers from Slapshot. You can mix them all up. They all look the same. It is Thursday, but, man, it feels like it should be a Friday.
No doubt about it. So, well, if Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are getting to you, at least we've got some good news for you. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And right now we're in the changing of the seasons. We just flipped the clocks and, it's getting dark a lot earlier in the day. Some people are really fine with that. Other people, not so much. It's also a time of the year as we're getting closer to the holidays. You want to check in on people, family members who might be going through a tough time, friends going through a tough time. But what if you're going through a tough time? Maybe it is time to finally talk to someone who has walked other people through similar issues, personal, professional, whatever it might be, and BetterHelp could be that answer.
Probably just about everybody would feel a little better if they talked to a therapist, talked about what was bothering them, what's on their mind. Just getting it out there instead of having it all bottled up can make you feel a lot better. Well, BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist based on a quick questionnaire using more than 12 years of experience to get it right the first time. But if for some reason you and your therapist don't get along or it doesn't work right, you can switch therapists anytime if needed. And with more than 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served more than 5 million people all around the world.
So this month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. 3 Martini Lunch listeners get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/3ml. That's better, HELP.com/3ml. All right, Jim, good martini. I think most people already know. It's certainly gotten plenty of attention. We've talked about it a couple of times this week. The shutdown is over. Of course, started October 1st when there wasn't an agreement on funding. I don't know how many times the Senate voted on the clean CR. I'm guessing it was 14, 15, 16, something like that. Finally, the Democrats went for it. On Sunday night, they agreed to cut off debate with those 8 Democrats joining all but Rand Paul on the Republican side to get to 60 votes. Then the bill got passed the next night. And last night, only 2 Republicans voted against it, Massey of Kentucky and Stubbe of Florida, and then 6 Democrats voted for it. So 222 to 209. And so, Jim, the original bill was to extend funding to November 21st, but that's next week. Now it's been kicked to the end of January. And so the question now becomes, what happens then? I would certainly like it to be Republican spending priorities that the Democrats are opposed to instead of extending the Biden spending priorities, which is what happened in this case. The Democrats had a horrible hand to play. They shouldn't have played it at all. They played it anyway and got creamed. I don't know what it'll look like next time, but what do you make of what we've seen and what do you expect in a few weeks?
I was going to say, Greg, depending on how you want to measure, whether you want to measure from the Senate vote or the House vote or when it finally gets to the president's desk, was this 42 days or 43 days as a government shutdown?
I don't know.
All right, it's either one of those two, and I just want to point out, God scoured the earth in 40 days. He was, it took Democrats longer to come to their senses than Jesus wandering the desert, right? Like 40 days is kind of this big Lent, right? 40 days is a measurement stick of like a really long time. Took the Democrats longer than that, kept the government shutdown longer than that. I am not a fan of government shutdown fights in general. You very rarely get anything out of it. There are a surprising number of conservatives who are convinced that taxpayers save money when it happens. Does not happen. Because the federal workers have to wrap everything up when the government shutdown is impending, and then they got to start everything back up again. Federal workers do get the back pay, which doesn't mean it doesn't cause some, great consternation in federal workers' households because they don't know when that next paycheck is going to come in. Bills are still due. And what's more, I think if your boss said to you, if you work in the private sector and your boss said, look, things are loused up, I can't pay you, and I don't know when I'm going to pay you, but I need you to keep coming in and working. You're probably not going to get paid this pay period. I can't make any guarantees for the next pay period, but I just need you to keep working normal hours, maybe even overtime hours. Maybe you need to cover for all the other workers who've been deemed non-essential, who are not here. And I need you to not let any of those two little blips on your screen as an air traffic controller run into each other. Like, that's asking a lot. I think that's really unfair for a bunch of federal workers. They didn't ask for this. This isn't any of their stuff. So it is, a frustrating but good martini. I would also point out, like, there are, under the deal, there's a little bit of improvement in the sense that we get to keep the Department of Agriculture open until next year, Veterans Affairs, military construction. All of those are going to be funded for the next fiscal year ending September 30th. So when they get back from the holidays, they're going to have to pass another continuing resolution. But Greg, didn't we have an appropriations process? Wasn't there, right? I seem to remember something in the Constitution about this. But at least if they have another government shutdown fight in early next year, at least we won't have to worry about military construction, Veterans Affairs, and Department of Agriculture. At least we have one less thing to worry about. But all in all, I'm hoping there isn't another one. I do kind of think if Democrats walk around believing that they won this fight, then they will be very tempted to play this card again. But I'm not sure that they will, in the fact that, like, Democrats are really, really angry. I wrote in the corner yesterday, Jon Stewart did this, I think very funny, but I can't bleeping believe Democrats, gave away their win after they had such a great election day. I don't know if this was that great win for them, because if they won, they would not have had eight Senate Democrats and Angus King, who is an independent. I get really tired of having to specify that because Angus King votes with the Trump administration. What, 1%, 2%? He's the least independent I've ever seen. But anyway, point being that there are 8 Senate Democrats who are like, we can't keep doing this. I'm sorry. I am allergic to their BS, Greg. I can't take it anymore. That's why I'm sneezing. I just don't understand how, if you're a Senate Democrat, you come out of this being convinced that, on some level you won the messaging war. And if you're a federal worker, you should be apoplectic angry that 2 weeks ago, the largest federal workers employee union said, okay, guys, it's time to pass this clean CR. Our members are suffering. And Senate Democrats, they just shrugged and said, hey, you just have to take it, right? By the way, let's point out, Warner and Kaine split on this, right? Kaine voted to reopen the government. Warner did not. And let's also point out there are Northern Virginia Democrats who are voting against reopening the government. As somebody said, this is like Nevada lawmakers voting against gambling. This is like, I'm trying to think, Pennsylvania lawmakers voting against steel and coal. This is just Michigan lawmakers voting against American cars. If you're a Northern Virginia lawmaker, your constituency is federal government workers. And the message from these guys is, I will screw you over for as long as it takes for me to get a win. Right? They should be furious with these people. And so, on that sense, if you're a Republican, I guess this is good news. I think if you want the government to work, this is just a very frustrating 40-some day delay in something that was all designed to make Chuck Schumer look tough. Democrats are apoplectic with Chuck Schumer. I would point out, though, that there's no sign they're going to get rid of him until they have an alternative. Greg, I haven't even heard any names mentioned or any buzz. Never mind. It's certainly nobody's coming out forward and publicly saying, yes, I want to challenge Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, nobody in the Senate is saying that. Ro Khanna would like Chris Van Hollen to be the next Democratic leader. That will be obnoxious very, very quickly if he ever takes on that role. Brian Schatz of Hawaii is kind of Schumer's understudy and the next one in line in kind of the traditional form. I doubt he would try to leapfrog him at this point. But again, there's a lot of rumors that Schumer might not even run in 28. And I suspect he probably won't be majority leader in the next Congress. he'll probably survive this one unless we have another scenario like in January, like we've seen the last couple times this year. Regular order has happened in the House. They have passed all their spending bills. But again, you're going to need 60 to pass them in the Senate. I don't know that you're going to get there, so I don't know how this is going to play out. We're probably going to get another super ugly omnibus bill, but hopefully not. Hopefully Republicans have the leverage to make this happen. And so Democrats got a couple of things here. The reductions in force that the Trump administration put in during the shutdown were pulled back in this Senate bill. So those people all still have their jobs. And the Senate's going to vote on the extension of the Obamacare subsidies. Mike Johnson is not promising that at this point in the House. And Andy and I talked about why extending temporary subsidies is a really bad idea. But it's probably going to happen nonetheless. So buckle up. We're going to get this fight again in just a couple of months. But at least it's not going to happen in December. I hate basically holding lawmakers hostage on Christmas Eve to get this stuff done, and they always end up voting for something truly horrible. So
if there's any theme in this podcast, it's don't take hostages on Christmas Eve.
Very good. Very good. All right. Let's talk about OneSkin. I love OneSkin. I especially love the sunscreen from OneSkin, which not only blocks those UV rays and prevents sunburn, but it also just takes good care of your skin. And OneSkin right now launching their limited edition holiday sets, including the Nightly Rewind gift set, which is one of those rare gifts that's both impressive and genuinely useful. And it provides an upgrade to anyone's nightly routine. It's perfect for your wife, your mother, your sister, your daughter, any woman in your life.
Known for cult skincare favorites like OS1 Body, OS1 Face, and OS1 Eye, OneSkin stands out for their science-first approach to skin aging, delivering hydration, barrier support, and powerful longevity benefits in every product. Certified safe for sensitive skin, OneSkin products are free from more than 1,500 harsh or irritating ingredients. They're dermatologist tested and have been awarded the National Eczema Association, or as we call them, the good NEA, the seal of acceptance, delivering powerful results without all the side effects.
Yeah, and at the core, as Jim mentioned with some of those products, is the patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity, which are all key signs of skin aging. And these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies. And so for a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using the code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support the 3 Martini Lunch and tell them that we sent you. That's code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML for 15% off. All right, Jim, let's head over to the United Nations for our bad martini. No stranger to the bad martini. The UN's usually up to no good. And this time they're trying to squash free speech. It's kind of the same thing we've heard from Obama lately. It's like, you can have your opinions, but you can't have your own set of facts. Facts are facts, and we should decide what the facts are, which, of course, Barack Obama's version of the facts is usually a little bit twisted compared to the real set of facts. But Antonio Guterres, the Secretary-General over there, basically sounding the same alarm and not only saying that it's disrupting what the UN wants to accomplish, which in most cases is probably a very good thing, he also wants tech companies to crack down on this free speech. Here's a little bit of what he said.
The United Nations' own operations and missions are compromised as our staff deal with a tsunami of falsehoods and absurd conspiracy theories. We demand action. First, to the big tech companies, take responsibility. Acknowledge the damage your products are inflicting on people and communities, and you have the power to mitigate harm to people and societies around the world. You have the power to change business models that profit from disinformation and hate. The climate crisis is a cause of particular concern. Coordinated disinformation campaigns are seeking to undermine climate action.
Oh, what a shame that is. Jim, this guy's from Portugal. He sounds like he's straight out of the Kremlin with that accent. But nonetheless, this whole idea of, we can't control where people get their news from anymore, so we've got to make sure that we convince tech companies that it's really, really bad that people are perhaps hearing things we don't want them to hear.
Greg, I'm glad you pointed that out so that I don't have to. If I imitated him, people would think I was being mean, making fun of his accent. I haven't heard it that strong since Sesame Street taught me how to count. 1 social media program, 2 social media program, 3 social media program that need censorship. See, I did it again. People are going to hate me because I'm so mean. Because, me imitating him is much, much worse than him saying you're not allowed to say what you want on the internet. No. We have to keep our eyes on the real villain here. By the way, we are seeing a movement in the right direction. Elon Musk purchasing Twitter is a big step in the right direction. It looks like Facebook has loosened up. All of a sudden, they're saying, look, the Biden administration, they didn't order us to remove this stuff, but they strongly insinuated bad things would happen if we didn't remove it. So we did that. You're seeing that from Zuckerberg and Facebook and things like that. But overseas, things are not moving in the right direction in the United Kingdom. Things are not moving in the right direction in continental Europe. And, I understand, people saying wrong things on the internet annoys me too. And I think that, I do think if you're a social media platform, I think the way X has its community ratings, where if somebody says something is just flat out wrong and it gets enough attention, the community comes in and says, well, actually, no, this is how things actually are. And, kind of issues that correction. I think that's probably the best way to handle it. I think it's pretty good. Facebook's got something kind of similar. If you want to run a social, but in the end, I'm listening to this UN Secretary-General, sir, you're not in a position to demand anything.
Right.
You're funded by us, right? You're by our government. You are, don't you guys have a genocide to take care of? Don't you guys have, I'm glad you took a break from resolutions denouncing Israel. But really, this is I'm sorry that people saying things about you on the internet that you don't like are making your job harder, but it's not the job of Facebook or Twitter or anybody or Instagram or any of these other platforms to protect the reputation of the United Nations. If you want a better reputation, do more good stuff. And as for the conspiracy theories, look, there are conspiracy theories about the next Marvel Avengers movie. Right. There are conspiracy theories about everything on Earth. Right. Tucker Carlson is probably interviewing Bigfoot this week. Right. This is just a fact of life. We all have to live with it. You have to live with it, too. You are not going to get American social media companies to step in and say, OK, whoa. You said something not nice about the United Nations. Time to take it off. Now, if you could genuinely demonstrate that there's some genuine life and death danger, if you said let's say because there have been cases in other countries where false rumors have started riots and stuff like that. In a situation like that, I think you have a stronger argument about social media companies having responsibility for, keeping monitoring what's being posted on their platforms and the possibility that could lead to not just, words are violence, but people punching people and attacking people and shooting people is violence. If that's the case, then I think you have a stronger argument. But you're hurting the reputation of the United Nations. It's not going to cause me or anybody else to lose much sleep, other than maybe the Count from Sesame Street.
Just to clarify something Jim said, I'm pretty sure the genocide he was referring to is the one in Sudan, not the one the left thinks is happening or was happening in Gaza, right?
Actually, I was thinking the Uyghurs. That's the thing about today's world, right? You can talk about one genocide or the other, and nobody knows which genocide you're talking about. There's enough of it. Shouldn't the UN be getting on that? You guys,
Exactly. And he keeps harping about climate action, Jim. One of the other stories we considered today is that a new study from the Institute of Oceanology of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and the University of California, San Diego now thinks the Gulf Stream is going to disappear in a few decades and we're going to be ushered into a brand new ice age. So either we're going to burn up or we're going to freeze to death. Pick one, people. Come on.
Everybody, don't switch the lever. We're going to bake to death. We're going to freeze to death. And wait a few years, they'll switch it back to the other one. Ideally, if you get we're going to bake to death and freeze to death at just the right component, everything's 68 degrees and it's very pleasant outside.
Exactly right. So also, if some of the math students were doing the research at the UC San Diego, you might want to recheck those results, as we'll talk about in just a moment here. But if you're going to check anything, compute that with Oracle. And because in business, they say you can have better, cheap, or faster, but you can only get two of those. So what if you could have all three, though, at the same time? Well, that's exactly what businesses like Thomson Reuters and Specialized Bikes have done since they upgraded to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure.
OCI is the blazing fast platform for all of your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. It's faster because OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. It's cheaper because OCI costs up to 50% less for computing, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. And it's better. In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth compared to other clouds.
Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/martini. That's oracle.com/martini to try OCI for free. One more time, oracle.com/martini. All right, Jim, we mentioned UC San Diego being part of that research and alluded to the fact that incoming students hopefully weren't part of crunching the numbers there. And there's a reason for that. Brand new research coming out that this is from Hot Air flagging this story. Almost 15% of incoming students, this is at college now, cannot perform math at the first grade level. And fewer than 1 out of 5 can perform math at the 8th grade level. That's less than 20%. These are college students at a fairly prestigious university, many of whom have achieved very good grades in math prior to graduation from high school. They've been awarded good to great grades without being able to do basic math. And so there are two people looking at this, Patrick Collison and Steve McGuire. Patrick says in one of his tweets, about UCSD, quote, "At our campus, the picture is truly troubling. Between 2020 and 2025, the number of freshmen whose math placement exam results indicate they do not meet middle school standards grew nearly 30-fold, despite almost all of these students having taken beyond the minimum required math curriculum and many with high grades." Patrick Collison also says this week, a math professor at MIT told me that incoming students are on average noticeably worse at math than they used to be. And so Steve McGuire gives an example of a question given to incoming UCSD math students. It was given to 138 students, and 25% of them got this question wrong. Here's the question. 7 plus 2 equals blank plus 6. Pretty sure it's 3. But Jim, apparently 25% of 138 students couldn't get that, and I doubt that it's indicative of only one university. It seems like a lot of schools at the secondary, elementary, and middle school level just shuffling people along, whether they've learned anything or not.
Listeners, I just want to let you know that Greg is correct. It is indeed 3. I ran the numbers myself and double-checked against it. Yes, it's, you know. Now, I suppose you could say great that the remedial 75% of people in the remedial math class got that thing that was like, what's that, like second grade, third grade? You know, like when they say middle school, I really think that's kind of elementary school. Maybe it's because I grew up in the brainy borough of Metuchen back in New Jersey. There's a couple questions. Like, one, I don't begrudge colleges running remedial math classes. Some students are going to come in with maybe they didn't take a math class their senior year. Maybe they, the skills got, atrophied over a while. Fine. Maybe they're really good in other categories. Maybe they're jocks. Maybe they're there for artistic abilities. But at some point, you got to know a little bit of math. By the way, as I look at this story, Greg, I have heard from people who work in the service industry that they feel like tips are exceptionally small. Now, I was taught, 15% was normal. Somewhere along the line, it went to 20%. And now, I don't know if you've noticed, when they flip around the little iPad at the counter, it goes 30%, 25%, 22%. What, 20's not even an option anymore? And of course they do the 30 to the left, so they're hoping you hit that one first, so 30%. But anyway, but even besides from all that, if you're like, oh, why am I getting tips so low? It may well be that people can't calculate 15% anymore. By the way, you move the decimal point over one place, that gives you 10%. You take half of that gives you 15%. I used to do this, after college, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're so good at math. No, I just know percentages. But, you got to know a little bit of math in this world. Even if you want to do other stuff with your life, you got to be able to balance your checkbook. Who writes checks anymore, Jim? Okay, you need to know how much money's coming in your account. You need to know how much money's going out of your account, unless you're the federal government. And then you kind of just have this, so you need, and this, how did you get into college? How did you get into this class? What was your SAT score on math? A 200 for signing your name? How did you get to this point? And I mentioned in the last Martini, I get annoyed with people on the internet. We have people who are just astonishingly dumb. Yesterday I wrote about how the United States, even in a bad year, even with policies we don't like, has more opportunities for a young person to succeed, particularly economically, than almost just about anywhere else on earth. And if you are a young person born today, you are in the top 1/10 of 1% of all people who've ever walked this earth in terms of opportunities to improve your life. Somebody wrote in angrily, Jim, half the college graduates can't find a job. And I looked it up. If you have a college degree, the unemployment rate is like 2.1%, right? If you have an associate degree, it's like 2.8%. So we're back to this person. I'm like, you're completely wrong on it. It's not even close to half, right? So they says, no, they're working as bartenders instead of working in their degree. Okay, but if you're working as a bartender, you're not unemployed, right? Let's kind of recognize what you meant is that they're underemployed or they're not working in their chosen field or not, applying their degree. If you want to have that argument, we can do that, but that's not what you said. You said half of college graduates can't find a job, which is not the case at all. And so I got annoyed with this person. I didn't join the United Nations and say we should ban this person from ever saying that. I did, and I raged at this person in a probably unhealthy level of anger. But I just got to point out that, like, we have people who, like, don't have critical thinking skills, who say something that is, like, completely inaccurate. And then when you call them out on it, it's with that Mott and Bailey, when you start retreating back. Well, what I really mean is this thing which is totally different. You move, worse moving goalposts that not even, that not even a good NFL kicker could hit because everybody's kicking field goals these days. And it just is this infuriating degree of things. We have a really unnerving level of public ignorance in this country, and there are a variety of reasons of why these UC San Diego, like, this is embarrassing. This is real. Like, you should, like, everybody on that campus should be A, feeling, ashamed right now, and B, looking suspiciously at their classmates saying, were you in that 25%? Because 1 out of every 4 classmates could not do that basic math class. That's really kind of, or I'm sorry, 1 out of every 4 classmates in the remedial math class. Hopefully a whole bunch of students over there skipped that, are studying good, serious math courses, or at least fulfill the requirements and all that stuff. So, like, it's infuriating. I think it indicates it's a lot of social promotion. I think it's a lot of, passing people. I also kind of ask the question, how many of these students, like, were their parents paying attention to the fact? One of our greatest presidents, George W. Bush, famously asked, is our children learning? And the answer was no, because we're getting bad grammar from the president of the United States. But, what as Dan Quayle said, what a waste it is to one's mind and waste mind, all that stuff. And as George W. Bush had also famously said, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and we won't get fooled again. And truer words were never spoken. So with role models like this, how are the children not learning? This is the sort of thing where everybody on that, this is the sort of thing, like, administrators, instead of getting really mad about the fact that somebody may have expressed a conservative viewpoint, this is what administrators should be getting really mad about, is the fact that they're accepting kids who can't do basic math. They're apparently and even in the remedial classes, they're not doing a particularly good job because quarter of the class still can't handle figuring out that 7 + 2 is 9, and if you take away 6, 3 remain. This is not like Sesame Street. This is our second Sesame Street reference in this podcast. Yes. Bring in the Count. He can talk. He can teach the kids even with that accent.
Exactly. I still have one kid in elementary school, and she's doing math with a whole bunch of letters and lines intersecting planes and all this stuff already, and I'm like, whew, I'm not going to be able to help you much longer, but I could definitely do basic arithmetic and maybe a little bit beyond that too. So anyway, Jim, let's hope things are better at other campuses, but really, let's hope standards get a lot tougher at high schools, elementary schools, and middle schools because, they're producing students who can't do this stuff, and that has to change. All right, Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. They really do help us. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. And yes, Facebook and Instagram too. Join us again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.